Testing.
Which one are you unmuting?
This one. I just did for the first time. I think I messed it up. So like when we talk in here, that needs to be unmuted whenever we start.
I didn't hear anything.
Testing. Is that November 1st? No. Thank you. Good evening. Welcome to the Tuesday, January 17th, 2023, regular work session of the Planning Committee of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Planning Commission. My name is Kiva Samuel, and I serve as chair of the Planning Committee. And we will move through the rest of the introductions, starting with our commissioners on my left.
Rebecca Wilden, Planning Committee. Shauna Neely, Planning Committee.
Clayton Seeley, Planning Committee.
Andrew Blumenthal, Planning Committee.
Rick Winiker, Planning Committee.
And now staff, please.
Alicia Osborne, Planning.
Zanya Duhaney, Planning.
Kathy Cornett, Planning Staff.
Maddie Pleasant, planning staff.
Erin Henson, planning staff.
Maria Florin, planning staff.
Thank you, members of our planning staff. To our committee members, meeting of the minutes is our first item. I'm sorry, approval of meeting minutes is next on our agenda. And if everyone has had an opportunity to review, I'll take a proposal for any updates or edits. So there is one item of note. There is a recorded absence, and I'll follow up with Candace to this regard as well. Commissioner Lansdale was actually reassigned to the zoning committee. And I believe that was effective on 11/1. So that should not be a recorded absence on his behalf. And if there are no additional edits, revisions, I'll take a motion to approve.
Wilden, motion to approve.
Second, Blumenthal.
Motion by Wilden, second by Blumenthal. All in favor? Any opposed? None. That passes unanimous. Thank you. No mandatory referrals today, so it's going to be a short night. There's only one item on our agenda. And let's allow our planning staff to take us through that agenda item. Some of this may sound familiar, but we'll get into the nitty-gritty here. Will that be Kathy?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll start it off and yes, some of this material, the background material you have seen before, but I felt like especially since there's some newer commissioners, it would be valuable for us to kind of revisit some of the context, especially going back a little bit. So I'll take a little bit of time to do that and try not to belabor you with slides that you've seen before. And then at that point, I'll turn it over to Maddie and Maria to talk more about the newer pieces that I think you're probably much more interested in with the toolkit and some of the launch items that we have online. So we have talked before several times about the adoption of the comprehensive plan in 2021, kind of setting the stage for the work we're doing. And then the policy map being adopted in March of last year. And then the UDO in June of 2022. And the policy map really, as you know, was kind of the very first big implementation item. And then that became our, that kind of took the place of what we used to call the future land use map. So that is actually the map that's referred to in rezonings and other things and capital investments and all of that. The plan did also lay out the idea of doing the comprehensive plan, the community area plans, which is where we are now. So that was contemplated in the comprehensive plan. So I just wanted to mention that piece of it as well. And going way back for some historical context, where did we even come up with the concept of place types? That actually was introduced to our community in 2012 with the Connect Our Future project that was run by the Central Carolina Council of Governments, and was actually a 3-year effort that spanned 14 counties, and it had its own engagement, and our community participated in it. So City of Charlotte, Charlotte citizens, and our staff. And really place types was introduced to that larger region as kind of a best practice. So at the end of that effort, we started thinking at that point, 2015, so how do we apply that to Charlotte? And one of the first steps we did was a land use policy audit. So I think you've remembered that we had not had a comprehensive plan in a very long time, but that didn't mean that any planning had not been done. There had been district planning in the 80s and 90s, which looked at larger areas than what we're calling for our community area plans now. I think there were like 6 or 7 of them. And then that culmination kind of in effect was our land use map. And then that was updated over time with small area plans. But we've talked a lot before about how that wasn't the most equitable process because they took so long. We would never be able to catch up and get the whole community to that same level playing field of guidance. So what that audit kind of highlighted was that 25%, only 25% of our community roughly had the level of guidance that place types provide. And then we tested that we went through all 80 something plans that we had and did a lot of testing to kind of verify that. And then that is what then was folded into the comprehensive plan. And so that's how we ended up with the palette that we have today. But one thing I do want to highlight is that all along the way, we've been very intentional to make sure that the palette that we have for Charlotte rolls back up into that larger palette for the 14 county region. So all the work we've done over all of the years and with the comprehensive plan, all the pieces of it are consistent with that work. So I just wanted to point that out. Next slide. And then we've talked a lot about the connection between the comprehensive plan and the UDO. And I think it's always valuable to highlight that the comprehensive plan sets the vision and the goals for growth and development and provides guidance for decision makers, but kind of the rules and regulations that are built off of that guidance are found in the UDO. So that's where all the legal pieces are. So the next step obviously is comprehensive planning. And that I want to highlight here is that will build off of the work done in the comprehensive plan. So it's not establishing a new vision and a new goals for all of our planning areas. It's really being more intentional as to how do the vision and goals within the comprehensive plan apply to specific areas in their context. And also, I know you've heard this many times before too, but the UDO, the next big piece of that is the official zoning map. So that will tell you what can be built, where it can be built, and how it can be built. So the rules of the game. And that again matches up with the place type map. So there are very specific zoning districts that are designed to implement the place types. And I think we've mentioned too that we are coordinating these efforts to provide clarity for the community, because it's very difficult for folks that aren't doing this every day to separate what's policy and what's regulation and how do the two things relate. So the coordinated message and coordinating our efforts as much as we can are really to kind of provide that clarity and also to maximize people's time, because not everyone has time to be coming to several different meetings, and it's confusing if they're about one thing that's related to the other thing. So our messaging and all of our efforts are coordinated as much as they can be. And then we've talked to before, the expected outcomes are 14 area plans for each of the areas. And then any refinements to place types that are recommended through that process will ultimately update our policy map as well. And there may also be recommended changes or updates that are highlighted in the work we're doing that will eventually update the comprehensive plan as well. And then it may also, this effort may also recommend changes to the zoning map, but that would be a completely separate process. So I'll talk a little bit more about this in another slide, but the work that we're doing won't rezone any property. It could update the policy map, but it won't wholesale rezone any property. That would be a separate step with separate engagement. So again, we're at the very beginning, excuse me, of the community area planning process. And we've talked a lot about the key components. So really, excuse me, setting the stage is where we are now. And some of the pieces that Maddie and Marie are talking about tonight really will highlight that as well. So what can you expect from an area plan? There are some things that it does, and there's some things that it doesn't do. So it provides policies to address development, opportunities, issues, and that inform decision-making, but it doesn't create regulations like I mentioned earlier. That's another separate step. It identifies public and private investments that may be needed for an area to achieve the best vision of itself that it can be, but it does not provide the funding. It documents the projects that are needed, and that does help us when we're trying to make the case or when funding becomes available, because you never do know when other funding opportunities may open up, but it doesn't provide them or commit them by doing the plan. It can recommend zoning changes, but it won't rezone property, and it can guide more appropriate development, but it does not stop development. And this slide really just highlights, as we did with the comprehensive plan, that there's kind of a whole suite of programs and processes that really work together to implement the vision and the goals that are outlined in any of the plans that we do. Now I'm going to turn it over to Maddie and Maria to talk a little bit more about the project kickoff materials.
Thanks, Kathy. So we're going to start with, I'm moving that back. All right, so we're going to start with our engagement strategy. We go to the next one. Oh, no, yeah, if you'll do that until we're done. So we're going to start with going over our engagement strategy, which is designed to be equitable and inclusive. Yeah, let's get it away from some of the metal. Is that better? All right. So for our engagement strategy, it's designed, as I said, to be both equitable and inclusive, with 3 buckets that kind of break up our engagement tools, being constant, coordinated, and collaborative. For our phase 1 launch, we're mostly going to be focusing on constant and collaborative. So today we're going to walk through some of the tools that would fall under constant, which is going to start with our website, our toolkit, and then the community reports. To kind of go over how all this, you're fine, keep it, works into our schedule. On the 9th, Catherine went over kind of an overview with you all and talked about how today we're going to walk through some resource demos. So we're going to do that today. And then after we present to council, both you and council will get a notification that other tools are going to be live, such as our email blasts are going to go out. We're going to have some social posts going out, and then the toolkit will go live as well on that date. And then on the 30th, Catherine mentioned last time to you all that we're working with 311 to develop an automated message so that anytime you're on hold, you'll be able to hear more about both the CAP process and the alignment rezoning process. So that will also go live on the 30th. So as I mentioned, our website has been a very valuable tool for us. It was developed first during the comprehensive plan, and we've continued to utilize that both during the policy map, and we'll utilize that during the CAP process. So our CAP information has, we have a homepage as well as subpages, just like we've had for policy map and comprehensive plan, that will allow us to share information. And as you can see in the bottom left corner, that's actually the homepage for both our efforts and the ARZ efforts as well. So we share that page with them, and then you can hopefully learn about both efforts, but we also reference their efforts on our website as well at charlottefuture2040.com. So we will be uploading content to there for the launch as we'll upload content for the launch there as well. And so that will be a significant resource again moving forward as it has been. And then the next slide is going to be our toolkit. So I'm going to go briefly over it real quick, and then we're going to dive into a resource demo of that tool. Today, we are going to be using the toolkit that was used for Policy Map because that is completely filled out, and that'll give you an idea of how to navigate it. And then that will hopefully allow you all to be familiar with the tool so that when we do launch, you'll be able to utilize that resource. So our toolkit is meant to be a place that's kind of a one-stop shop for everyone to be able to go and share information from like pre-made templates that we create with our team. So for Policy Map, we'll see that we did have pretty much all of the same subpages, except for this time we'll have a community area planning workbook instead of that survey. And that will be kind of that interactive element that people can use throughout the process. So I will take that from you now, Erin. Mhm. Great, thank you. So this is what the homepage of the Ambassador Toolkit looks like. When you come to the homepage, you have on the side kind of a brief description that tells you what you're looking at. And then each of these are part of this collection, are story maps that share pre-made templates or information for each of those subjects. Starting with the toolkit overview, this is a great place to start because it really gives you more information. Yeah, I'll try. Is that better? Yeah. Thank you. So for the overview page, you're going to have, again, a description of what is in the toolkit. On each page, you'll find this back to homepage button on both the top and at the very bottom of each page. This will take you back to the collection homepage so that anytime you're on any of the subpages, if you need to go back to the collection, you can get there very quickly. For the overview page, you also have an outline of each individual section. And when you click on any of these, it'll take you to that section so that you can go there from the overview. If you just want the whole toolkit flat out, the overview page gives you that option, and you can go straight to, the Dropbox and download the entire thing. But conveniently, if you're only maybe interested in, let's say, social media, you can just download that section as well. So each page not only has the ability to go straight back to the collection, but it has an outline of what's in that section, the ability to download that section, and then the content is both shown and then there's a link for each individual like item, so you can download that separately as well. So we've designed it to be extremely flexible to what our ambassadors and would like to use. So you can use the whole thing, you can use part of it, you can use one singular post. And then, as I mentioned, as you go through, you have a few different ways to navigate. You can navigate from the overview page using these different links. You can navigate by going back to the home page and clicking on one of those icons, or you can navigate by clicking here at the top center. These arrows will also take you through just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So now that I've kind of shown you how it works function wise, I'm going to go over again what we'll have. So again, the toolkit overview page is going to give you an overview of everything that's in here. The adoption of next steps includes every element that's been adopted so far, starting with the comp plan. And then in the CAP version, you'll have comp plan, policy map, and then you'll have information on the CAP process. You'll have a page that just talks about the CAP process. In the next version, we'll have the workbook, which Erin at a later date, we'll go through that as well. You'll have a social media kit, a youth kit, which was first developed during policy map by one of our interns. I think Catherine mentioned that last week for those who were listening. We wanted to make sure that we include some versions of this content that is a little more youth friendly. And then you'll also have our FAQs, printable resources, and then this is email over here. So once you click on these, as I mentioned before, we've set everything up through Dropbox. So it's very easy to download. You don't have to have an account, and you can just click and download any section you want. And then, as I mentioned before, we do reference the UDO and their processes throughout all of our materials pretty much. So with that, we're hoping that it's pretty easy to navigate. I know some of you may have seen this before, but I'm going to pause here and give us some time to answer any questions that you all have about this tool specifically.
Do we have any so far from Eddie? Any? Okay.
Great. So what we can do is we can share, well, the link is actually on our website. But we can share that after this meeting so that you all can kind of get familiar with how to navigate through this. And what's helpful as well is that we've used this collection tool to build out some of our other engagement tools that you'll see. So once you navigate one, it should be pretty easy to get through the other ones. So I'm actually going to hand it over to Maria now. And I'm going to give you the nice microphone.
Thank you, Maddie. I'm gonna.
Yeah, and you can do it. Sorry, I filled up the tabs.
Right.
Far right.
Yeah. You can accept. One more.
Okay. Okay, so as you know, we've developed community reports for each of the planning geographies throughout the city to help set the stage for the 2023 community workshops. So prior to the workshops, we'll invite community members to review their communities, their geographies 2040 community report. And those reports outline 3 main questions that we want the community to understand so that they come to the workshops better informed. So the main thing that you're going to see highlighted in the community reports are who lives in the community today, what growth is expected for the community by 2040, and the community's greatest needs to ensure the expected growth benefits everybody. And these aren't required, obviously, to attend the workshops, but it's one way to help lay some groundwork to kind of level set the community when they come and attend these. So I'm going to do a quick demo of an example of one of these geographies. So this is the main homepage. To get started, there's a
Yeah, it's not showing.
there's a get started button under here, but for some reason you can't see it here, but it's the same as this one right here. So on this main page, it gives you an overview of community area planning and gives you some general information. So to find your community's report, you would enter your address in here or zoom into the area on the map to an area on the map where you would want to see. And when you put your address in, it would zoom in, and then you can either see the geography there, or you can click on it. And again, it looks different on the screen, but I don't know. Okay, let me go back up. Okay. So yeah, you would click and it would tell you you're located in the East Inner Geography or wherever. And then from there, you would either look at your community area on this top bar here, or again, it'll on the main homepage, you can go straight to geography if you know where you're looking at. So then on the east inner one, it'll show you on the map right here the boundaries for that area. And it's going to start with demographics of who lives in the area. So it'll show you residents, and it'll show you the number for the geography, and then the comparison of the citywide fact for each one. So residents, race, education, the workforce, and then income. And then under each of these graphics, it shows where that data was pulled from. And then you keep scrolling down, and this next section will show you what growth is expected. So you'll see existing residential units and projected units, existing jobs and projected jobs. And then again, it shows you the source. And then it shows you here, the map to the right shows you where the area in orange is where growth cannot be expected because the land is constrained, or it's roads, or publicly owned, or things like that. So again, it shows you the source, and then you keep scrolling, and we get into the equitable growth framework section. So it gives you an overview of what it is. And for each geography, it gives you a score for access to amenities, access to employment, access to housing, and environmental justice. And then it shows you the legend for how it's measured here. And again, you can use the map. There's a map function for each one that shows you how it's measured. And then you scroll down, and it shows you the citywide one, or all the geographies compared based on their scores. And again, it shows you your source. And then if you scroll down here, so the map that it starts on is the essential access to essential goods and services. And then it shows you access to housing in the map, access to employment, and environmental justice. And again, the source. And that's it. So that's the info that we're sharing for each of the community reports, and people are invited to go and look at whichever ones. So actually, let me go back to the PowerPoint. Actually, do you want to go back and share back to the PowerPoint? Okay. Yeah. Or actually, no, if there's any questions, I can go ahead, since we can stay on here. If there's any questions, I can.
Any
On
questions
the community reports, I'm happy to take them.
Any questions for Maria?
It's pretty simple and self-explanatory. So
Only thing I might suggest as a web developer and designer is to reverse the light blue and the dark blue against that map that you had when you clicked, let's say, East Enter, and you were going down where it had boundaries. It was in a dark blue, which was kind of dark. Well, when it was against the actual radar view, not radar view, but the street view. Yeah, it was a little hard to read, and if anyone had vision troubles, they would probably have a problem with it.
is it this one
That,
here?
yeah, I would swap that out for the closer to cyan blue.
Okay,
That way it will pop a little bit more.
yeah. Yeah.
And honestly, that might be just because it's on a projector,
Mhm.
but
No,
just
that's
in case
helpful.
people have vision problems.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think it looks awesome.
Mhm. Yes.
I'll just go. Wilden, you kept looking that way and I was like, well, I do know that there are social media platforms that are going to be limiting like the visibility of anything that looks like it was copy and pasted. So how is the social media toolkit kind of going to like tell people to personalize it?
That's a good point. I know that that's kind of been talked about here and there. So far, we haven't had issues with that, but that's a good point to bring up for our strategy. We provide at least copy that is like a suggestion that includes like the bare minimum information that's like, if you're posting this, this is what you need to know. A lot of times we have people who will take that and use the graphic and use the copy, but kind of add their twist to it. But that's a good point for us to kind of take note of for our social strategy sessions. So thanks for bringing that up. But so far it is a suggestion, but I think that maybe we could incorporate some notes that like, this is the information you need. But please, make your own spin on it and share from like your voice. So that's a great point. Thank you for bringing that up.
And also, this is amazing. I just want to like applaud y'all. This is wonderful.
Go back to the PowerPoint. Yeah. Yeah, so that's the overview of what's scheduled to be shared over the next few weeks as part of phase 1 of community area planning. Yeah, next slide. Yeah, so as champions of this effort, we just ask, our ask from you is that you help us spread the word once we begin to push this out about the project kickoff, the resources available on the website, including the toolkit and the existing conditions report, or the community reports, and to encourage people to follow along and sign up for project updates so that they can be notified when the workshops begin. So, yeah, that covers it. If we're happy to take any additional questions.
Anything additional? Okay, so I think there was a very clear call to action. I think this is some of the information we've been asking for over the past several weeks. And now that we have it, it's time to share. It's time to talk. It's time to be collaborative. So if there are no questions for staff, this will make for a very short meeting. And we'll be able to grant you the next hour and a half back of your time. Okay, that means no more questions. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Winokur, motion to adjourn.
Sealy second.
Motion by Winokur, second by Sealy, all in favor? None opposed. Thank you. Good night.